As some of you may have spotted, I was away on holiday there for a couple of weeks, visiting my family in the northwest of France. It's a lovely part of the world. It's always a joy to visit, but getting there from Poland is an absolute nightmare. Combine that with Mercury retrograde, you get quite an explosive concoction. Now, I imagine many of you watching will know what Mercury retrograde is, but for the novices out there, I'll give a quick explanation before telling you exactly how bad our journey was and what I finally did about it magically in order to get out of that mess, recalibrate, and then go on to have one of the best holidays my family and I have ever had. So, what is Mercury retrograde? Back in the days when the dominant view was that the Earth was at the center of the cosmos, people would look to the skies and see a blanket of stars moving across the sky around the Earth once a day in a uniform way. Well, mostly in a uniform way. Against this stable, regularly revolving backdrop, there were 7 bright points that didn't seem to be fixed like the others were. They moved around the Earth once a day, of course, but when they came back the next day, they would have moved against the backdrop too. They had their own directions. These were given the name planets, and because they weren't really going around the Earth, but rather around the Sun, as we now know, once in a while, from the Earth's perspective, they would appear to slow right down and even go backwards on themselves for a little bit before resuming their forward trajectory once again. Well, astrologers noticed that when a planet went backwards or retrograde, aspects of human concern that were ruled by that planet would go out of whack, so to speak. So when Mars was in retrograde, an army wouldn't dream of going to battle unless they really had to, and lovers would fall out during Venus retrograde, etc. The planet that goes retrograde the most often, and that we notice the most in this new information-centric world of ours, is Mercury. When Mercury goes retrograde, anything that involves movement, commerce, sharing information, computers, and travel, in other words, anything that involves getting something from one point to another, whether it's data or money or merchandise or ideas or parcels or your family and suitcases, tends to experience trouble. Printer broken down and a parcel lost in the post, all on the same day? Check the calendar. It's probably Mercury retrograde. Sent your email about your weekend plans to the wrong email address, and now your boss is asking questions. And your paycheck that should have arrived on Thursday still hasn't arrived, but somehow the help desk to sort it out is experiencing difficulties at the moment, so please call back after the weekend. Mercury retrograde for sure. Super expensive deluxe book edition, paid for but no sign of your order, and the publisher doesn't seem to be getting your messages. Well, to be fair, you might have just ordered from Hellfire Club Books. It's true, it's not always Mercury retrograde's fault, but it very often is. Which is why I usually try to make an effort to avoid travelling during Mercury retrograde. But this time it couldn't be avoided. We hadn't seen my parents in ages, and prices at other times were just prohibitive. I just bought the tickets and didn't check. Big mistake. I realized about a month before traveling that we'd be short about 10 minutes to get from the plane when it landed in Terminal 1 all the way to Terminal 2 in time to catch the only train that day to where my parents live in the west of France. Paris Airport's got 3 terminals. You have to take a shuttle to get from one to the next, and there are queues for the lifts that take you to the shuttles, and somehow Terminal 3 is between Terminals 1 and 2. Anyway, long story short, we'd never make it in 45 minutes, especially with luggage to pick up. These are expensive train tickets, €240 for the 3 of us, so I definitely didn't want to miss that train. So I decided to exchange them online. I found some tickets for the same destination leaving in the late afternoon from Montparnasse in the centre of Paris. I thought, great, we'll have a bit of time in Paris. We'll get our luggage to a locker and check out the Musée d'Orsay, the home of Impressionist art, which I've always wanted to visit. So I click on the button to exchange the train tickets. A message pops up saying there was an error. I take a look. My tickets haven't been changed. But now, instead of a button that allows me to change them, there's a message saying, this ticket has already been changed once, you can't change it again. So I write an email to SNCF, the French rail service, and a personal long-time nemesis of mine, through their special customer help form. 2 days later, I still don't have an answer from them. But when I check my tickets on my account, they've changed. They're the ones I wanted, from Montparnasse. Great, I think. Now let's print them. I click on the See My Tickets button, but another message pops up saying, these tickets cannot be displayed. Please go to a booth in any of our stations to retrieve your tickets using code whatever, some random letters and numbers. All right, something to remember on the day, I suppose. So, of course, the big day arrives and we land at Charles de Gaulle Airport and we've got our luggage back and we've queued up for the shuttle and we've arrived not at Terminal 2 but at Terminal 3 this time, which is where the underground to get into Paris is. And I just think to myself, I won't wait until this evening at Montparnasse to pick up my tickets. I can see some booths, I'll print them now. I get to the booth, I put in my code and a message pops up saying, there was an error with this order, please contact a representative. I go back to my account on my phone to check the code to just try again, but now the tickets are gone. Altogether, vanished, as if they'd never existed. So I call SNCF Customer Help Desk. They tell me that there's been a mistake on the system and they can see from my history that I bought the tickets, but they're now gone and unfortunately there are no tickets left today or tomorrow or the day after, and then it's a bank holiday on the day after that. She tells me our tickets will be refunded in 4 months' time and then puts me through to sales to see if they can find a solution for us to get where we need to go. After waiting on the line for 40 minutes, the lady who picks up tells me that there are no trains going to my destination from anywhere in Paris and hangs up, which was fun. So I start looking online on my phone for trains going to a different city, one that might be close enough and my mother could pick us up from there. Nothing today. There's a train leaving tomorrow evening with no allocated seats, so probably standing. It's a 3-hour journey, but better than nothing. I buy the tickets. And then I call my mother to tell her our plans. She's amazing. She accepts the mission to pick us up at the new location. Meanwhile, my wife is trying to use our usual booking website on her phone to get a hotel. But it's telling her that Paris doesn't exist. I try from my own phone. I use the application instead of the website. Still no joy. Paris is not on their database. Don't you mean Warsaw? No, I want a hotel in Paris. This is a major booking service, by the way, like probably the biggest, best known one. We use it quite often, so it gives us discounts. And after various tricks like turning on a VPN and searching from my history, I finally managed to get the application to remember that cities outside of Poland do exist. I book the cheapest hotel I can find, my heart sinking nevertheless at seeing yet another enormous chunk of the money we'd saved for the holiday just getting gobbled up. Well, with that handled, it was time to head off to the Musée d'Orsay. I buy tickets for the RER, Paris's fast underground service, and I check that they're the right tickets, and I make sure that we validate them on the way in. But when we arrive at the Musée d'Orsay station, the barriers won't let us out. There's a loud beeping noise when we feed our tickets into the readers, and a red sign tells us we can't pass. I look around, there's no one to help, so I press the button to call for assistance. After a little while, a voice appears saying that someone will come and help. 15 minutes later, there's still no one to help. My son, who has autism, is becoming increasingly distressed. So we cross the whole station to the main exit. There's a guard there who does let us out. He tells us that the tickets just got demagnetized. It happens a lot, he says with a chuckle. We're finding it hard at this point to share the amusement, I have to admit. We drag our suitcases the 2 or 3 blocks to the lockers. And finally, we reach the Musée d'Orsay 2.5 hours later than planned. It's chock full of people. We can barely move, let alone get close to any of the art. My son finally melts down, sits on the floor, sobbing. We leave the museum that I'd been dreaming of visiting since I was a teenager within 30 minutes of entering and decide to search for food. All the restaurants we can find online open at 7 p.m, so just 3 hours to wait. Fortunately, my wife remembers seeing a cafe outside the museum on the way in. We sit down for some crêpes and a glass of cider, and finally, some respite. Let's just enjoy this little moment of rest. The food tastes edible. The cider is just what I needed at this point. I get a message notification on my phone. It's the SNCF, the rail service. Your train leaves in 20 minutes. Have a great journey. My heart sinks. I look at the tickets that I've bought on my account. The dates have somehow changed. They're now for today, and we're at least 40 minutes away from Montparnasse, and it's less than 20 minutes till departure, so I can't cancel the tickets even. At this point, I actually genuinely pinched myself to check that I wasn't dreaming. Nope. Surreal, but real. I let my crêpe go cold while I booked the same train again for tomorrow, another €100 or so. That's quite a lot of bad luck for one day, even with the SNCF involved. I'm not at home with all my ritual stuff, but clearly I have to do something. This isn't just par for the course. Something's off. I start doing whatever I can internally to uncross these crossest of crossed conditions. So here's what I do. The first thing is that I mentally do the sword banishing rite from Damon Brand's Magickal protection, encompassing myself and my family in that sphere of cleansing energy, repelling anything nasty that might be enjoying our miserable outlook. I'm very aware that some entities feed off those negative emotions, and I just wanted to make sure that nothing like that was hanging around, encouraging these crazy bouts of bad luck. The next thing I do is that I address Mercury. I'd asked Mercury for protection before leaving, as I always do, but I wasn't counting on Mercury being out of sorts. So I build a trap for Mercury's troublesome attention. I take a paper napkin, tear off a strip, I fold it in half, and then I roll it up tight into something like a double spiral. This isn't a technique that I've learned anywhere, just seemed to be the right thing to do. I'd read of people leaving sand on their windowsill to fascinate vampires, who would then get so involved in counting the grains that they'd never move on and stay counting until sunrise, when it would be too late for them to escape. Turns out Sesame Street really were onto something. But similar devices are used throughout the grimoires to trap spirits by giving them interesting puzzles and patterns to get fascinated by and eventually trapped in. So I used what I had available, a torn napkin, and I focused my intention for anything that was causing this ill fortune to have fun finding the center of that little double spiral where it would be trapped for long enough for us to get away from it. The final thing that I do, all while sitting at the table there, completely unbeknownst to anyone around, no robes involved, no circle of the art or incense offerings, nothing, just me and my attention. I go to my inner palace, the one that I told you about in the video that you can see popping up here. Well, I've got a number of guardians there. Some frightening looking ones that are there mostly as a deterrent. I wouldn't mess with them myself, but we're good friends. And also others that are not so frightening, but who are great at digesting anything negative and turning whatever it is into fertilizer for the gardens. So I approach these various guardians, and I ask them to be particularly vigilant. There seems to be good eating to be had. And then I go off, just for a little while, to a darkened room that I've got set up, especially for this kind of situation, when I can entirely get off-grid, so to speak, become pure mind for a few moments, and allow anything that might be after me personally to lose the scent and go off looking somewhere else. Whether it was an actual parasite or simply Mercury's attention while he was in a bad place, it seemed to do the trick. Remember, This all just takes a few seconds while my wife and son are enjoying their desserts across the table from me. Within moments, my attention is back in the room with them as if nothing had happened. Now, my son is really fed up, and he's asking to go straight to the hotel. Obviously, it's a shame to be in Paris and not take advantage of the situation, maybe do a bit of tourism, but nothing we propose seems to cheer him up, so we accept. But then my wife has a brilliant idea. As we walk towards the station, she stops and looks at the riverbank, and she points at the bateau mouche that's docked just a few steps down. My son sees the boat, and we ask him if he fancies a ride, and he agrees. We spend the next hour sitting on this boat, first in a complete stupor after such a crazy day, but gradually, slowly unwinding. I have to say, there are worse places to unwind than a bateau mouche on the Seine River that's taking you past all the big sights of Paris and ending right at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. It's kind of hard to stay in a bad mood under those conditions. By the time we get back to the starting place, it's raining, but we're in a much better place emotionally. As I mentioned, the hotel was the cheapest I could find close to the station, so it was definitely nothing amazing, but while the beds were small, they were also very comfortable, and I made a point of being grateful for that. We slept like logs, and the next morning we decided to make the best out of a bad situation with an impromptu visit to Le Louvre. Now, I'm still nervous. Have we turned the corner on this extraordinary bout of bad luck? We arrive at Le Louvre, and there's a queue to get in that extends right around the building. And there's a guard saying that wait times to get in can take up to 2 hours with no guarantee. But I also spot that there's another tiny queue for people who had booked a time slot. So I check my phone. Can I book a time slot? It's 9:28 a.m. No time slots remaining for today except at 9:30 a.m. 2 minutes to go. Folks, in that moment, I knew something had unlocked. We were through the tunnel. I got the tickets, we breezed straight past the queue, and I can tell you we had the most amazing day. Checking out all the Italian masters, of course, but also discovering the huge indoor gardens with the French sculptures. It was brilliant and nowhere near as crowded as Orsay the previous day. And when the time came to get the train, we not only got seats, but seats sitting together. No such luck for people boarding just a few minutes later than us. My mother picked us up in her car and drove us home, and our holiday could really finally start. Anyway, all that to say that if you're traveling, checking whether Mercury is in retrograde or not is probably a good idea. There we are. I want to say a massive thank you to all the members from YouTube, from Patreon, who have made this trip possible. We had a wonderful time. We ended up going to the Mont Saint-Michel. We ended up going to Disneyland. It was just fantastic. And just spending all that time with my parents, it was so nice. Visiting my brother also and seeing my niece for the very first time. She's already a year old, and this was the first time I was meeting her. It's just absolutely amazing. So thank you everyone who supports this channel, because all of your support goes towards supporting me and my family and enabling these kinds of wonderful adventures and experiences. So yes, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you especially to the level 3 members whom you can see scrolling on your screen over here, and also to the Lux Eterna members, David Venturini, Aritz Murueta Ramos, Caitlin Kopok, Eamon, Linda Hendricks, Stephen Hunter, and Susanna Red Elves. Thank you so much. Your generosity is incredible, and I deeply appreciate it. Thank you also to everyone who has booked conversations with me, consultations, to have your cards read, or just to have a conversation about whatever is on your mind, whatever area of the esoteric or spiritual world that you want to discuss or put on the table and get my opinion on. I'm so grateful that so many of you have actually decided that you wanted to spend an hour chatting with me. I really enjoy every single one of those chats whenever they happen. So thank you very much. Yeah, details on how to book a conversation with me are down below in the details, as well as the links to become a member through Patreon or through YouTube. It's all in the description down there, and there are also links in the pinned comment. In the meantime, thank you so much for spending this time with me. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up, hit that like button, and to subscribe also to the channel to find out more about magic and magical ways of seeing the world. Thanks again for watching. See you very soon with another video. Take care. Bye bye.